Hello, everyone. Good evening. We will wait for a couple of minutes for everyone to join in. Please give us a few minutes to start. We will begin shortly. While we wait for a few more people to join in, why don't all those that are here already let us know in the chat where you all are joining in from? To tell you about us, I'm Ulka, and Mahek and Shivani, all three of us are joining in from Delhi. It would be great to know from you all where you're joining from as well. Oh, hi, Payal from Chennai. Good to see you today, or at least see you on our webinar attendee list today. Thank you for joining in. Hi, Shami from Delhi. Thank you for joining in today. All right. So welcome, everyone. My name is Ulka. I am a program manager with the Harappa School of Leadership, managing the Accelerated Management Program. And today we have a very special webinar planned with Mahek and Shivani, who run the founder's office at Harappa. And as you know from the title of the webinar, the engine that powers the founder's office. And well, we have the engine with us today. So welcome, Mahek. Welcome, Shivani. Very glad to have you with us today. And welcome everyone who is joining in for the webinar. To quickly introduce Mahek and Shivani, Mahek has over 5 years of experience in business strategy, financial planning, investor governance, and operations. She joined Harappa in 2021 and has worked in the founder's office of Harappa for almost 2 years now. She leads strategy, financial planning, and investor relations, and played a pivotal role in spearheading UG's transaction of Harappa. Welcome, Mahek.
Thanks for the lovely introduction, Ulka.
And we also have with us Shivani. Shivani is the head of product and operations at Harappa, with over a decade of versatile experience spanning customer success, process excellence, digital transformation, and product domains. Shivani's profound expertise has been honed through tenures at distinguished firms such as American Express and RBS. Hi, Shivani.
Hi, Ulka. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Pleased to meet everyone and excited for this chat.
Awesome. So we are also excited to get started, and we would love to hear from you as well. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please post them in the Q&A box. The Q&A box helps me administer all your questions immediately. If you post them on chat, I may miss out on a few, but we'll try to cover all of them wherever you post, but priority is the Q&A box. So why don't we get started with a few questions that I have. Starting with Mahek. So Mahek, you're the strategy lead at Harappa, and you've been with the founder's office for almost 2 years now. So how did you come about it, and what exactly does your role entail?
Sure. Thanks for this question, Ulka. Before I address this question, I'd like to break down the concept of strategy a little bit so we all understand that directly. When we did studied history in our school, we keep watching these series on battles all the time. We keep learning about, how Mughals acquired land and how, all these, how the World War happened. We read about it on Mahabharata as well, right? And, I honestly feel that this is what I really apply in my life as well. We can draw very similar analogy to how we look at strategy in a modern time as well today. the kind of competitive analysis that these kings and queens used to do back then to understand the competitors, to understand their strengths and weaknesses can very well be evaluated to how we look at our competitors right now, how we understand the market landscape, choosing and deciding the terrain we'd like to operate in, deciding the kind of army we'd like to build, take the kind of arsenals we'd like to build, and deciding who will head the army also defines how we look at GTM strategy today, how we look at the kind of programs we'd like to take to the market today, how do we allocate resources in modern times. So I think, to simply put it, it's very well relevant in those times. It was very well relevant in those times as it is today. And, to keep it very simple to that, it's about it's a path to get to the vision that the founders or the owners of the company have embarked for the company. And in my current role at Harappa, I manage strategy. I work in various strategic initiatives that obviously are directly contribute to the growth of the organization. I manage the P&L and, plan the annual operating plans as well, and budgeting. So there's a lot of stuff that I have done over here. And personally, I would say that this was like an amazing experience, amazing learning experience for me, which has actually led to my personal growth. And, to simply put, I'd say it was like an on-job MBA sort of an experience for me. Yeah.
Wow, I think we now understand the importance of studying history also, and how we can apply those principles in our day-to-day jobs, strategizing, I'm sure, not just for founders office, but otherwise as well. So what a great analogy. So Shivani, coming to you, your journey at Harappa has been very diverse, right? And as a product lead, what areas in the founders office do you manage?
Okay, so my journey at Harappa has been very exciting, very interesting. So I joined Harappa 1.5 years back in B2C as senior product manager. And it's been 1.5 years, and I've been fortunate enough to be a part of so many different kinds of roles. I worked with engagement and customer success briefly, and then in the CEO's office, where I got to work on some amazing problems like resource optimization, cost reduction. We were able to reduce more than 50% of the resource cost for the organization, working on the budgets, annual operating plans with respect to product and technology. So some great problems we've solved in the past 6 months. And I think now the life has come full circle, where I'm heading the product team. In addition to that, I also have operations and customer support reporting to me. So it's a very exciting and challenging role. And I personally believe the only reason I have been able to pivot to this big transition from B2C to B2B, where the discovery, inception, execution is so like poles apart, honestly, I think it's because of my exposure in the founder's office, where you get to know about how a company works, outcome, big picture thinking, solution-oriented mindset, and what essentially goes in running a company. So I think, yeah, that's pretty excited for the upcoming problems to solve.
Sorry, that's really great to know, Shivani, about your diverse experience. And I think I have a follow-up question to that. You have, been in product for a very long time, and you have done B2C, now B2B at Harappa. I think I would love to know more that coming from a non-tech background, what skills did you have to build in order to lead product at Harappa? And how does a product evolve while working in founder's office?
Oh, this question comes up so much, like the famous debate of engineers versus non-engineers of becoming product manager. I think anybody can become a product manager, while technical skills are very important, and you can't ignore that. Even if you're coming from a business background or any non-technical background, you need to have that inherent interest in technology, and you need to be passionate about it. So I think that's very important. But I think the top 3 skills that have helped me grow in product are: number 1, first principles thinking. I think that's very important, and it has become so relevant, not just in product, but if you want to work in founder's office or in any fast-paced environment. Second, continuous learning. And I think this one is very important, not just for business people, but for non-technical people as well, because AI is changing the way we work. The entire landscape has changed, not just for the tech, but for business as well. So it's important to continue to learn, which is where Harappa comes into picture, and we can help you there. And of course, third skill, which is very important, is customer obsession and understanding the data. I think these are the 3 core skills that had helped me, and how the product has evolved in the past couple of months. So I think I would like to link this with my experience in the founder's office, because that is what we are talking about today. I think the way we define after working in founder's office, like before B2C and after now in B2B, I think the way we define the vision, mission, like the entire inception discovery phases has completely changed for us. Because when you work directly with the founders and the CEOs, they are abreast of the market changes that are happening, what our competitors are doing. So we are able to very seamlessly and effectively translate their vision into reality. So roadmap is very much aligned with the company's vision, and that disconnect doesn't happen, which is very important for an organization to succeed and build great products. Second, I think innovation in the past 6 months has doubled at Harappa. So for example, Shresi, our CEO, she had a very interesting idea in promoting the adoption of ChatGPT and Bard in the organization. So everybody within the company, they shared so many amazing ideas, and our roadmap was actually shaped by those AI ideas, and the outcome was amazing. So the product team has created like the one of its kind, first time in India, an online learning libraries offering a ChatGPT enabled ThriveBot, which can drive consumption, engagement, knowledge retention. All of this has happened because of the innovation driven focus that our founders are bringing, and so many other things. We have been able to scale, like language is not a limitation anymore. We are offering solutions in Mandarin, Thai. Who could have imagined this 1 year back? And this is all because of, again, the founders office engine that is powering that. And thirdly, very important, adoption. Adoption becomes easy when you're working closely with the founders, not just by the customers, but by the stakeholders who are actually the champions who will vouch for your product. And lastly, very important, in all our roadmap discussions and whenever we are building products, it's not just limited to shipping features anymore and talking about discovery, what, why, how, and agile lifecycle. No, it's also a lot about how we will bring in more revenue, how we will reduce costs, what the server cost will be, how the resources will be utilized. So the first principles, again, going back to the big picture thinking, that has become very relevant. So I think that's how I would say the product for me has evolved, how we function in the last 1.5 years.
Wow, it sounds so exciting, what you're doing, especially in a product role, that it's constantly changing. It's extremely fast-paced. I think there are various stakeholders involved. And I think aligning them towards the CEO's vision or the founder's vision, I think you're an extremely big support. You're that right-hand man. I'm presuming the right or the left, or who, I mean, whichever the dominant, or I guess both are equally dominant in various areas. But wow, I mean, just with your response, I could feel the fast-pacedness of the role. But coming to Mahek, I think in your response, you said that working in the founder's office is like an on-the-job MBA. If you could elaborate more on that. And we also know that you yourself have done an alternate MBA program, the Vedika Women's Scholars Program, and would love to hear more about that.
Absolutely. I'm a Vedika scholar, from 2018 batch. And you know what I took away from my learning over there in those 18 months was that, I know that many people choose and decide to join prestigious colleges and institutes with those brands, and people have preferences. People want to go and join these institutions, but at the end, what it boils down to is the crux of the entire program is the learning. What we take away from the program is what that really matters. And in those 18 months, I got exposed to a huge network of people, like my peers in my batch. They were lawyers, they had 10-15 years of experience, they came from diverse backgrounds. Even though I didn't have any experience when I went for that program, I learned so much from them that because of those learnings, I'm able to execute most of my stuff over here in my previous organization and even at Harappa. I think our learnings become the crucial point of how we implement and do and look at things. It has taught a lot about how we maintain that discipline, how we stay optimistic, despite everything's going down the drain, right? And the second thing that really stood out for me, in my experience, there was the faculty connect, right? The kind of faculty we got exposed to. They they were CEOs, CHROs of leading organizations. They had so much knowledge to share. And, the fact that, we could connect with those faculty even after we left those colleges. I'm still in touch. I have my bestest of friends from Vedika. The kind of network that we've been able to develop and the kind of support we've generated for each other, I think really matters a lot. So, it really boils down to what we are able to take away from our learnings and the kind of community and the people we get exposed to during any experience. And the similar thing that I can say from my experience, even at Founders Office, right? I got to work on so many diverse priorities, and and it was difficult to keep pace with it in the beginning, because I was trying, it's very easy for someone to lose track of what's really happening when you are managing 100 things together. But the anchor who's actually supported us throughout is Shirsi, because we need that person who's actually given us clear directives. So we have to find people like Shirsi and these people who can actually support us and guide us throughout the journey. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds a whole lot like our AMP journey, because we do, cover various tracks which are related to running a business, getting the know-how of, the foundational knowledge, and then, applying them in your roles, in your work immediately. And I think that's what's happening for you, the transfer of knowledge from Vedika to, now that you're here, and also learning. And from what I'm understanding is Shresi is also like a mentor. Yeah. And so Kirsi, she's not just your boss, but she's also guiding you, mentoring you throughout. Wow. So that's like you don't have to go and seek out one. You found one in your boss. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So coming to, both of you have different roles, but I'm pretty sure they do converge. They do have some common ground. So what are some skills, that converge or bring you to a common ground to work towards, a certain vision that our CEO has?
Sure. I think before we talk about the skills, it's very important for everyone to understand what is essentially a founder's office entails. So founder's office or a CEO's office is essentially a team which is responsible for driving the strategic vision or just bringing into reality the vision of the founders and the CEOs. So I think that's a huge responsibility. And while it sounds as a meaty role, I think the super skills or the soft skills that are needed to actually thrive in this role, they become even more important than the hard skills that one can possess. So I think Mahek will agree with me, the top three skills that I can think of that have helped both Mahek and I thrive in this role and survive in this role, rather, I should say, because it is a high growth environment that we are living in. First is adaptability, because things are changing at a very rapid pace and you have to pivot very quickly. Every quarter can have a different North Star and you have to be okay with it. Second is solution-oriented mindset. In Founders Office, especially in our roles, even as strategy and product head, it's not just limited to product and strategy. There are so many things. Though how our day looks like, it's so different. Any problem can come to us, and you need to have a solution-oriented mindset. You can't be about that. This is not my job. This doesn't fall under my job description. If that is the sort of role that you're looking for, then this is not the role for you. And third, strong bias for action. And I think these three roles are something that I have seen a lot in my founders and a lot inspired by Shirsi. Like you said, she has been a mentor, and I think her bias for action, the way she makes decisions so quickly, I think all of these qualities have been inspired by her, and I hope I'm practicing and living up to them. So Mahek, what do you say? Would you like to?
I totally echo your thoughts, Shivani. And just to add a little more, just to my sense on this, I'd say that, to me, business acumen is the most important skill. And we apply it in our day-to-day life, on each and every decision that we make. we have to decide the kind of metrics we'd like to measure. We have to see whether a business is growing or not, whether there's a year-on-year growth or not. We have to see if we are spending lesser on technology and all the other cost levers as compared to how much you were spending last year and last year as well. We have to ensure, operating in a B2B space, we have to really ensure that the customers are coming back to us. And because if that doesn't happen, then we don't know whether our PMF is not that great, and then we have to look at a sales cycle. So I think, essentially saying that it's really important to measure these metrics on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis. And, the edtech industry has changed drastically in the last 2-3 years. I remember joining Harappa in 2021. And at that time, there was a huge, there's huge discussions about funding in the edtech industry. Companies were spending crores and crores on marketing. And that is when the term CAC, which is the customer acquisition cost, became so popular that people were acquiring revenue at any cost of marketing spends. That happened. But now slowly and gradually, things have changed so much. Even when how we got acquired by Upgrad, our understanding of this industry has really changed. And now we're looking at actually revenue at a sustainable growth, to see how we're optimizing our metrics and our cost levers to get to that figure really well. And the second thing, which I, personally really follow, is that, we generally keep talking about hard work versus smart work. And, if anyone wants to really sign up for this role, you have to sign up for all the challenges that come your way, right? And I essentially believe in hard work. Hard work means dedicating hours, energy, time, resource, and everything, what you're passionate to, everything that the founders really follow, and your vision should really translate into something that you are portraying in your day-to-day, the way you work, etc. as well. So I generally feel that hard work really builds the foundation of how smart work gets built on it. It's only after you lay the foundation is when you actually think about bringing about efficiency. So to me, having the right set of business skills to be able to evaluate for decision making and seeing which product lines to, which kind of business lines to look at, which business lines to shut, what decisions to take. And the second would be to not shy away from hard work. That really is the sense of it.
I absolutely agree that thought. Well, smart work is required, but you cannot get away without working hard. You have to work hard. You have to be there. You have to show up. And I have seen you two showing up every time. There are so many, it's so fast. There are so many things happening constantly. And Mahek, you just mentioned, there are certain challenges that you face. I think we would love to hear from either of you or both of you, what are certain challenges that you face being involved in such an environment, working so closely with the leadership, looking at, growth, right? You have to ensure growth of the company. So what are certain challenges that you face?
Yeah. I can quickly, respond to this question by saying that we often talk about the North Star metric, which has become really popular. It's the new buzzword. And, so the first important challenge that anyone in this role would face is that you don't have a defined set of KRAs. You don't have an option to say no to any kind of work that gets assigned to you. You'll have to jump. You have to keep at it. You have to keep driving, because your role keeps evolving as and when companies' priorities change. Right? For example, your priorities will keep changing on a monthly basis. You can work on a H2 business plan in week 1. You will probably work on the calendar for the next year program launches in week 3, and probably in week 5 you're fixing some of the delivery related problem. These projects are completely unrelated, but you will have to support this and do all you can to make it work. And another challenge that comes, along its way is that, you have different stakeholders to manage. You have your internal teams, you have your friends, you have to communicate in a certain way, because you get access to such confidential information. So you have to ensure that you apply judgment before discussing anything with your teams internally. Then another set of stakeholders are investors. You have these monthly review meetings. To them, you have to be as transparent as possible, translate your vision and projections accurately. So you are constantly juggling, and there's no defined set of KRAs that gets allocated. And, you have to adapt to changing situations. And, the fact that again, coming back to the same point, it's very difficult for one to actually decide which thing is your priority for this week. And you will probably have your week planned with your set of to-dos, but everything will go down the drain because something or the other will keep coming up. So we have to constantly adapt to changing times. That's my take on this.
Shivani, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Mahek has pretty much covered everything. The only thing I would like to add is one of the biggest challenges dealing with ambiguity, because honestly, when I am asked this question, what my day looks like, it's so difficult because every day I have is very different. One day I will be working on licenses, and some other day servers, and then some other day some engagement challenge. So it's very tough that. And like Mahek rightly said, the communication piece of it, like you have to tailor your communication very differently. So it's the same piece of information, but now if I have to, so for example, every quarter, like Mahek said, the North Star can change even for product. And that's a very tough conversation to manage within the team. So I do have a team and I have to go back to them and get that buy-in also. So while I define what winning looks like, start of the quarter, mid-quarter, I might have to go back and convince the team, get their support that no, while we are pivoting, it makes sense, and get their support also. Otherwise, execution will never really happen, and it happens a lot. So the ChatGPT example that I spoke about, that was mid-quarter launch that we did, and it was within a month, and the product managers working on it, and even the engineering team, they were able to deliver within a month, but it was very tough for us to convince, reprioritize. So I think dealing with ambiguity, pivoting very quickly, and managing communication, not just within the team, with external stakeholders, I think these are the biggest challenges. And working within so many constraints, you do have a lot of limitations, and you're aware of those limitations. You might, since you're so much married to founders vision, you won't even go back and fight those limitations, right? Because you are aligned, very much fundamentally aligned as to why that is happening. So I think these would be the biggest challenges that I would say I face.
There's one thing that I noticed in both of your answers is how you have teams, you have people to support you, to ensure that anytime that these challenges arise, that things do not stop, right? They continue. There is no pausing, there is no waiting, how will this get solved, or for anyone to intervene. And that is where you take the lead and you make things happen with the support of your team, with the support of your team. And it's absolutely commendable. So I have a few questions come in the Q&A box, and Nikhil Gambhir is asking, if you look back in time, is there anything you would have done differently in this role? If yes, why?
Okay. Yeah. Shivani, want to go first? Or
yeah, you can.
I personally feel that, in the beginning of the, period when I joined this role, I was a little confused because I didn't know which thing to prioritize, which task to prioritize. And, there were times that I didn't know about stuff. There were times when I didn't know about the right kind of metrics to actually measure. But I still continued with it, did my own research, went up and reached out to many people for their help. I personally feel that there was this thing of not failing, right? I have this constant fear of not having the right answer to each and every question. This is the fear that I carry with me. So I think, because we constantly live in an environment where we say that we'll probably get judged because we'll probably end up asking stupid questions. So I would definitely, looking back at how I was, I would definitely like to avoid that phase and, reach out to people actively, reach out to my, managers actively, seek for help. I would do that. I go all out and, not worry about getting judged. So that's the thing I'd like to change.
I absolutely agree. I think for me, the biggest opportunity area that has been, which has at times led to me not meeting, like twice in the last quarter, not meeting what I was supposed to, was essentially not inability to delegate. So when you are a very good individual contributor, and this strong bias for action again. So when you end up taking everything on yourself and you don't delegate to your team members and don't collaborate when you don't delegate, I think then you don't achieve those outcomes. While you may have to compromise on quality, like the quality that you think is right in your head, you have to let go of that and actually put business outcome first. That is what we have to do. What are the best resources that can make that happen? I think this is one mistake that I did, I think in the last quarter that I can think of, which today I'm very consciously trying to change. And I think that has helped me now become a much better leader than I was before. So yes,
Wow.
good question, Nikhil. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so relatable, both of your responses, because, well, I don't work with the founder's office, but the fear of judgment, one, and also delegation. I think both of these aspects I so relate to even in my job. I've not had as much experience as you guys, but I think out there, I think most of us, when we're starting out, when we are new to a company, I think these are some things that we do struggle with sometimes. And it's great to hear that there are ways to manage, and could be a conversation for later. But thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing. And thank you, Nikhil, for that question. There's another question which is asking, how does Harappa plan or prioritize? What is the foremost focus for Harappa? Is it revenue? Is it customer experience, employee development, or keeping up with the market?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I think I can answer in context of Harappa and with respect to product, while Mahek can also talk about the financial aspect that we look at. So when we prioritize any product or any solution or any program, I think when you prioritize the customer, revenue will follow. So you have to really understand, and you have to be realistic about it. You have to understand your TG very well. So I think when we prioritize anything, any solution, the first thing is what we are trying to build, and why essentially why are we building it? What is the business outcome? So what is the goal that we are trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve revenue? Are we trying to reduce cost? Are we trying to expand? If you're trying to expand, then of course customer will come in first, and then of course the how will follow, which is your question, like which factor to consider while prioritizing. So the what, why, and how is essentially what we leverage while prioritizing the solutions for, and depends on the solution and the outcome that we are trying to achieve. Mahek, would you like to add the financial aspect of it?
No, I totally agree with your point of view. While I agree that for any company, profitability, getting the bottom line correct, all of that is most important. But Harappa's focus right now is learner first. It's client first. That's why we take pride in the fact that we have such good NPS scores. We have such good customer satisfaction scores. We really value these metrics internally. We try and cater our solutions, to the needs of the organizations or the person who's actually taking up our courses and programs. So I think delivering that value to the end consumer becomes more important than anything else right now. And 3-4 years into operations, we're still trying to build our space within the industry. We're still trying to see what really works, and we're still experimenting with a lot of stuff right now. So I think keeping aside profitability for now, I think I totally echo, and I think that customer first and learner first is the way to go.
Yeah. Absolutely, I agree.
And we agree. I mean, even for A&P, learner first, no matter what. And we have a very strong feedback system, as in feedback is worked upon, and which I don't want to say, but it happens. You have certain product experiences and you give some feedback, but you don't know if it's being implemented or not. But I think that is something that we value a lot. Where we take feedback, we implement, and we communicate that. How are we implementing? Whether it is possible to implement now, or will it be possible to implement in the future? And that is something that we take very seriously, even for AMP and for our learners. You are the first ones to come. Coming back to another question that I have, I think we have idea about your day-to-day tasks. Mahek, you're constantly involved in financial growth, revenue, strategy, and Shivani, you are into product operations, right? You're constantly in that zone. So when it comes to the big picture planning for the company, right? I think what I would love to know is how much you're involved, how often does it happen, and how do you balance out big picture and day-to-day stuff?
Meg, you want to go first, or you want
Yeah.
me to?
Yeah, I can go first. Whenever we talk about big picture planning, Mulka, it's essentially about aligning goals, right? And we do organize, we make it a point to organize annual strategy meetings. We take the leadership out on, 2 day, sort of a thing where we actually brainstorm and do all the planning. We definitely organize internal meetings, workshops, quarter end meetings, all of it to actually come together, put our brains together to actually consider what's working, what's not, and actually, we do that exercise of putting stuff on hold, continuing with different stuff, and initiating new stuff. So we keep doing that all the time when we are looking at big picture thinking. And one important thing, because you rightly pointed out that we get so engrossed in our day-to-day lives, day-to-day work, that we generally lose focus. And I can totally relate and resonate, because there was a time when I was working on this acquisition which took us about 6 to 8 months, and we were, it was so difficult, next to impossible, to work on those 100-200 legal documents, join these calls with financial advisors, legal advisors, incorporate their inputs, and then actually, working on the business plans, aligning your vision. There's a whole lot of work that we did to get there. But essentially, the bottom line is the impact that it led to. I think whatever we are doing on a day-to-day basis actually, contributes to that impact, which is what really matters. So even a small thing like, checking the accuracy of an invoice that goes out, taking exceptional cases and getting those approved by someone, or even working on these documents that will actually end up in an acquisition or a merger sort of a situation. The impact is what really matters.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think how in founders office, one thing which is very unique to us, and what I love about our team is the most, is that the flow of communication, it's like very quick. It's like a relay race, if you have seen in school. Okay, so whenever Shresi has a vision, we connect as a team, and how the communication travels so fast to the entire organization, like Mahek spoke about, that there are so many cadences set up. We speak to each other very often. We won't wait to write an email. We will just walk up to the person. We will just call that person. We might even WhatsApp. So I think the flow of information, the transparency, the collaboration is very high. The bureaucracy is avoided. It's not one organization in which one will wait for the skip leader to come and take that decision. I think that as an organization, we have empowered all our resources to take the decision. So work doesn't stop if someone is not coming, or if they are on their time off, or if someone is just not around. So whatever and we are very clear on the outcomes and North Star and the measures of success for us. So that helps everybody in the organization take those informed decisions and the calculated decisions. That I think really helps us translate the big picture thinking, which is the vision, into the reality, which is the execution. And I think Shresi and supports us very beautifully in that, and we are able to succeed because of the support that we get, and from our stakeholders and everybody, and my team also. So I think that is what I would like to say.
It's interesting how Mahek said that all these day-to-day tasks impact the big picture. And Shivani, you said that all of the communications run so smoothly that the big picture trickles down to the day-to-day tasks. So it sort of works both ways. And it has to impact, and it has to, it's a loop. Like whatever you're doing has to impact your big picture, and whatever vision that is set for the year, for the quarter, whatever, has to be incorporated into your daily tasks. It has to show up in some way or the other. Very beautifully answered. So we would love to hear more questions from our attendees in the Q&A box. In the meantime, let us take one more question from Nikhil. After having worked with a founder so closely, if you were to start a company today and become a founder yourself, what is the one thing you would definitely do and one thing you would definitely not do, and why?
So I think a lot about this question, actually, because, my end goal is to launch my own business. And, the one thing that I definitely do is, stay with that cool mind, stay optimistic, because, there are times when I am stressing about what's going to happen, how will we end this month, and, how will this go? What will our investors say? This is not going good, and all of that will happen. But when I look at Shresi, she will always have that smile on her face. When I look at Pramad, they'll always stay calm, they'll stay optimistic. So that one thing that I definitely would like to implement in my journey as an entrepreneur would be to just stay optimistic and stay calm, because that will actually take places. And the one thing that I definitely would like to avoid, is that, I would want to start early on thinking about how to invest and allocate resources. By resources, I mean the funds available, what right team size to hire, like, for example, to avoid any sort of overlaps, to ensure that, the resource allocation is done right. I think that would be one thing that I'd definitely focus on. And one thing that I definitely would like to implement is that their focus on optimism and how do they stay calm amidst all the changes. I think that's there.
Shivani?
Yeah, I think one thing that I have learned, which is very important, is essentially leadership. So one thing that I would really focus on is building the right team and hiring the right people, because as a founder, you can't do everything alone. You need to have the right resources, like Mahek said. So going for the right tools, building the right resources and leadership, and getting the buy-in and support from the team. So, and that will only drive a successful execution if you have right people who are supporting you and who are with you. So I think leadership is very important. One thing that I will avoid doing is not getting married to a strategy or a plan. So I think the ability to pivot at the right time is very important when you're running a business. So for example, if I start a B2C business, okay, or if I start something, and if the PMF is not happening, then of course pivoting at the right time, coming up with a new strategy is very important. Because what many people do is they get hung up on what they originally had envisaged. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Just accept that and just move on and come up with an alternate solution. So I think this second thinking is just acceptance, moving on and coming up with a new plan, pivoting. That is something that I will avoid doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that question, Nikhil. I have another question for Mahek. So we often hear execution eats strategy for breakfast, right? And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, if you relate to this, and what advice you have for your founder on this.
Yeah, so I definitely don't think I'll advise my founder in anything, but because I think they're perfect in whatever they're doing and how they're leading this organization, to be honest. But I do understand and echo with the fact that execution is really the center of what it is, right? A CEO's role doesn't really involve about, it is not really about everyday day-to-day operations. It's a lot about that. Like I've seen Shirsi, fighting with investors for employees appraisal, taking a stand, staying there, aligning investors on the expectations of what we can deliver, how we are performing, and still keeping at it while maintaining everything else, while celebrating small wins. I know she's most excited that we are doing this webinar. The fact that she's the one who's actually encouraged us to do it, the fact that she encourages all of us to do it. I know we talk about us leading the CEO's office or the founder's office in India, but it's really Shirsi managing it and driving everything essentially. So I'm no one to advise Shirsi or the founder or anything that they can really do it. But, I honestly feel that execution, implementing the right strategy, you measuring the right kind of metrics really plays an important role in executing it correctly.
Shivani, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Mahek is absolutely right. Like I said, the execution is something which is so important, and Shirsi has a very good hold on it. So it amazes me how she's able to pivot so quickly among so many different departments. Like she will seamlessly lead sales meeting, and then again she will get into an AWS discussion, and then followed by a different strategy on content altogether. So you need to have a very strong hold on that, and for that you need to be very detail oriented, and you need to have a very strong bias for action, which she has. Today only we were talking about a product solution which was related to URL, and it was quite technical. But for you to be able to pivot so quickly among so many different departments, I think you need to be very detailed and outcome oriented, which is of course what our founders is, and she does it amazingly, and that is something that inspires me the most about her.
Great. Thank you for those responses. We have one more question in the Q&A. Sanidhya is asking, how do you manage to keep everyone aligned when decisions are made so swiftly by various team members?
So essentially, I think looking at the end goal is really important, right? And doing everything it takes to align stakeholders, be it internal team members or even investors. If you think that, let's say, one particular business line is not working, you have to be honest. You have to help your internal teams understand that, reallocate those resources where they're best utilized, and let the investors know that this isn't working, and we'll be more profitable if we do something else. So I think it's about being honest and authentic and sharing your vision accurately when aligning teams internally as externally as well.
Great. Shivani, do you want to add something to that? Because I do have another question for you after it.
No, I think, again, Mahek has covered amazingly. So I think effective communication is very important here. When you want to align any team, be it your team, be it external stakeholders, it's very important for you to be, first of all, very transparent, very proactive in your communication, which is why so many conflicts happen, because people are not very proactive when it comes to communication. So that proactiveness is very important. And secondly, just make them understand why we are doing something, the why behind it, like what is the outcome that we will achieve with this change. Because in the end, it's not us against them, right? We are all working for the same organization. We have the same North Star, like everybody speaks about. We have the same measures of success. So we all are working for the common goal, and we have to just make it them understand why the metrics will move positively if we take this discussion. And I don't think so then the resistance or those conflicts will happen. The change management will be seamless.
Great. Thank you for that question. I hope Shivani and Mahek have answered your question, Sanidhya. Shivani, coming to my question, is product all about the right tech, or is product now a much larger game about business, research, etc.? What do you think?
I think that's a great question. So I don't think so product is ever limited to tech. There is a reason you will see so much on LinkedIn that product managers are the CEOs of the company. While I'm not saying they are. Essentially, the way all those memes and those conversations have started happening on LinkedIn and in so many social media platforms is because product it essentially represents each and every department. We have growth product managers, we have marketing product managers, we have technical product managers, we have business product managers. So I think product is essentially, it lies at it's an enablement function, which is essentially the fulcrum of the organization, because the way the business is changing, where everybody in the world is talking about profitability, EBITDA positive. So you can't build solutions that are not efficient, or that are not very cost effective, right? And at the same time, the way AI is changing the technological landscape, I think they also have to be very much aligned with the tech. So you can't have a competitive advantage. You can't stay ahead in the industry if you're not catching up with the tech. So I think now the way product has changed, you have to be about everything, not just tech business, but all the functions that as an organization you're representing and that are good for the customers, because we are a B2B organization, right? And in sales conversations, there are so many features that come up. So if we are just building on the features, we are having a very myopic view, or we are just building on the roadmap that we think is right, that will never work. We have to take inputs from what other B2B players are doing, what our competitors are doing, what the learners are vouching for. And of course, if we are not ahead with tech, then you will never really have a good performance. So I think both the aspects are very important.
Great. Thank you for sharing that view. I think we're to the end of time. We have actually overshot by 2 minutes. So if there are no more questions, I think I would like to end with one last question for you both. And that is, I think we know that Founders Office, well, we know what you do, but we would also love to hear towards the end, how do you think growth in your personal careers you are viewing through this role, working in the Founders Office? Where do you think this is taking you?
Meg, would you like to go first, or you want me to take this one up first?
Yeah, I can go first. Like I shared earlier as well, my dream is obviously my goal is to launch my own business, and there's nothing better than working with founders directly on their business. Because one thing that I've come to realize now when I think about this one particular question is that while I was working on that acquisition, that was the closest I got to Pramath and Shresi in that phase. And that is when I realized that their setbacks. I could actually experience their setbacks. I could actually empathize with their insecurities. I could actually now think about this being as a shared vision, because now I'm actually experiencing what their vision is. It has become like a shared thing now, because when you build a community around people, of people around you who are there to support you, who are there with you, who are there to go to any length for you and for the business and for the business vision of the organization, I think that really is what really matters. And I personally think that if I can do this for something that I'm really motivated for and something that really drives me, I can very well implement these learnings into my business as well in the future as well. So I think that will definitely help in translating my vision in the future.
Shivani?
No, I think Mahek has summarized very nicely. For me, I think the exposure working with the founders, working in the CEO's office, and the exposure has personally helped me grow as a person, like on a personal level, 10x. I couldn't have imagined starting my own company, but right now, I think the fact that I can even think about it, the confidence that I have today, it's all because of founder's office. And I think the entire outlook changes when you work. So the way I used to think about roadmap was very myopic, and my entire view for every problem, be it a business problem, be it a product problem, be it a cost problem, profitability, everything has changed, because it has become what really is right for the business, what really is right for the customer, and what really will be outcome oriented. So that, I think that shift has happened very naturally, and which is why I feel that I have also grown. The fact that I was able to transition so seamlessly from a B2C to B2B to leading customer support and operations, which is something that I haven't done in the past. The fact that I'm able to do that, it's all because of working, and the importance of leadership, like I said, of Tracy and her strong bias for action. These are the things that I've learned. If she can have a whole strong handle of everything, and she has so much more to do than I have, right? So I think it's just so inspiring, which inspires me to be like 1% better every day, which is what we all should strive to become. So yeah.
Absolutely great to hear that we will someday get to see your ventures, to see you in leadership positions, and you are leaders already. So we are seeing you thriving in the founder's office at Harappa, and we will hopefully see your businesses in the future. Thank you so much, Mahek and Shivani, for doing this, for this lovely conversation. For those attending the Accelerated Management Program, we're launching the Cohort 4 in September. And if you want to check out our website, if you want to get in touch with the program team, write to us. There are details mentioned in the chat. You can book a one-on-one slot with us and have a conversation about where does AMP really fit with you. If you're thinking of further studies, upskilling, how can AMP help you do that? Or are your career aspirations and what you want to learn, will you find that at AMP? Book a one-on-one slot with us and find out. We will also be launching a quick poll. If you want to know more about AMP, please do click yes, and we will get in touch with you. Once again, Mahek, Shivani, thank you very much for doing this. Thank you all those who attended. It was a lovely conversation, and hope to do this again.
Thank you so much, Ulka. It has been a wonderful conversation. We are excited to see the cohort and meet the students. So we are super excited for that, and all the best, everyone.
And to all the attendees, I hope you had a delightful evening. Yeah.
Monday.
Thank you so much. Do answer on our poll. It would be lovely to hear from you. And yeah, we log off now. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.